Hi ITgeeks, presenting your first story on Office 365. Microsoft Exchange has always dominated email solution market share. At one point of time, the global market share of Microsoft Exchange was almost 78 to 80%. Office 365 has evolved with time and on its way to the most dominant solution for enterprise standards productivity solution. In 2006, it had somewhere around 34% of the market share, which has grew to around 56% in Q3 of 2018, and it's still growing as we speak. Now, let's look at one of the components of Office 365, that is Exchange Online. That's what we will be discussing in this video. So whenever I talk to customers, I always use this analogy. So the moving from an on-premise solution to a cloud-based solution is like driving on a bridge, and unless the pillars of the bridge are strong, it becomes really challenging to reach to the other end. There might be multiple theories on what project phases should be part of Exchange Online implementation or migration projects, but we will stick to with what we actually see on the ground. So, this is our point of view on what should be, what works, and what fails during an Exchange Online implementation or a migration project. So, as I mentioned earlier, right, about the pillars and the bridges, let's see how it relates to our discussion here, right? So, when we look at the pillars, we see assess, tools, team, decision, communications. So, these pillars, let's have a quick look at them and how do they hold this entire implementation or migration bridge together, right? So now, looking at assess, what exactly does it mean, right? It means about assessing your environment, right? Your enterprise environment. What features are you going to use, right? What security norms you'll have to follow? What security measures you'll have to implement? What security tools you want to bring in, right? What plan would be the best suitable for your environment, right? And how sensitive is your enterprise environment for this kind of a change? Now let's look at the next pillar, that is tools. What tools you will need for migration implementation, right? Um, are native tools enough for you, or any third-party tools needs to be onboarded based on whatever features that you have decided uh, when you were assessing your enterprise environment, right? The next big thing is the teams, right? The team is this is the team of IT geeks who gets their hand dirty during any kind of implementation or a migration projects. There are tons of professionals available in market with this skill set, right? The key here is to choose the right one for you. Now, the next pillar is the decision, right? And this is the most crucial pillar, right? This is the team who is responsible for making decisions throughout this journey. Most of the time, it's the people from customer side who are the decision makers, right? So it has to be someone who is quick, who is knowledgeable, who is an accountable person, and who understands the environmental dynamics, right? When I say environmental dynamics, how things work in an environment, how things are driven, how things are adopted by your user, what are the business user pain areas, and how will they will react to this kind of a big change. Okay. And last but not the least is the communication, making the users, the stakeholders aware about what is coming, um, how smooth we can make the transition through this, right? Driving the adoption for this big transformation that they will be going through, right? So now, as we have looked at all these pillars, right? Now let's look at how they contribute, right, in making this transformation successful. And this data is based on all the learnings, right, that we have seen from multiple implementation projects, right? So let's look at first the success factor, success contributions, right? So when we look at assess, right, assess as a pillar, right, we see that it is contributing somewhere around 30% to the success of the project. So the customers who went through this phase, what exactly they did, and when they became successful, what was those key elements which they followed, right, to make this pillar strong, right? They looked at their enterprise environment, they looked at the scale, they looked at the scope, right? They underwent the infra readiness exercise. They planned for some of the solutions like archiving, like an encryption. They looked at the network elements like express route, they did the bandwidth analysis, right? They planned for the filtering and spam management solutions. So these are some of the crucial elements which they assessed, right, in making sure that this pillar is strong, because this is the first step in starting that journey, right? So that is the reason it has to be planned from soup to nuts, right? Which make sure that each of those components which we will face during this implementation phase are being looked upon, are being planned, are being if there are any risks associated with it, they have been identified, and there is a mitigation method or a plan that has been already identified for them. Right? Now the next pillar is tools, right? What we see is it contributes somewhere around 10%, right, to that success of the transformation in those projects that we saw, right? How does it exactly go through? When they were looking for these tools, right, they went for multiple proof of concepts, right? Because see, there are multiple tools available in the market, right? And you will have to identify the one which solves the purpose, or which helps you during this transformation journey, right? They went for the multiple POCs for multiple products that are in the market. They did a throughput analysis with all these tools to make sure that they are adhering to the environment needs, or they are adhering to the environment standards, right? The third pillar, that is team, which contributed somewhere around 40%, right? As I mentioned earlier, these are the guys who get their hand dirty during an implementation or a migration, right? What did those customer did in this for this pillar? They found the right guys for the job, right? They found those experienced guys, right? What they actually also did is they built the right combination for the team for planning, migration, and support, right? So these are some key elements, right? When you do such kind of transformation projects, you will have to plan for them, right? So when we are building such kind of a team, right, the planning has to be done by guys who have done this kind of multiple implementations earlier, who have thorough knowledge about how a solution can be built for a specific need for any customer. See, technology is there, right, but it has multiple elements to it. It has multiple solutions in it. There are multiple third-party tools available there, right? But again, the planner, the architect guy who has to plan this, he has to understand the environment needs and build that solution for them, right? So building that team becomes very crucial, right, from all these elements, because I cannot ask an architect guy to sit and support a user related issue in reference to an outlook problem, right? So the architect or the planner is supposed to architect a solution, right? There has to be a team who actually does that migration, right? Stages those mailboxes, click the buttons, right? Monitor those reports and do the actual migrations. And then finally, there has to be someone who supports, who's the end user facing guys, who will support those users in terms of issues, in terms of educating them, tell them, okay, this is how it works, this has been changed, this is how you will have to do it from going onwards, right? So building that right combination of the technical team was one of the key factor, right, during these successful migrations that we have seen, right? The next one, the next pillar is the decision pillar, which actually contributed somewhere around 20% of that overall success factor, right? Now, what did they do differently, or what did they do specifically when they were building this decision team, right? They built a delivering governance model, right? When I say delivering governance model, it's not just a kind of a paper model, right? They built that team based on who are the right stakeholders for each of those infrastructure areas, and they made sure that those are the guys who will be delivering those deliverables for those respective areas on time. They know about the respective areas, right? The next big decision is they chose the right vendor, right? So when I say they chose the right vendor in terms of implementation, if they went for some specific service provider, or if they went to Microsoft Fast Track and took their help in fast tracking their transformation, right? So they chose the right vendor, right? They adopted agile principles, right? Because see, this kind of transformation, we have to be agile, right? There are multiple element moving parts to it, right? And bringing it all together, right? Bringing that one great foundation to start, right? Controlling all these moving parts together, bringing into one streamline, right? That's where agile comes into handy, right? And the more importantly, what they all followed was the project management methodologies. See, we all know that most IT geeks will feel that okay, the project management methods are mostly theoretical, right? They are the theoretical knowledge. But again, those methodologies really help in driving some of these transformation projects to success, because there's a structured way of doing some stuff in project management, right? If we follow that route, and it's a proven method, right? It's a proven methodology. A lot of organizations follow it, right? So there shouldn't be a dilemma either from the IT side or the teams who are making decision to go ahead and to follow it, to adopt it. And these guys did the same stuff, so we saw that it gave good results. So last is the communications, right? So communication contributed somewhere around 10%, right? What they did different, I would not say different, and what they followed was proper mail communications, right? Timely communications, right? Giving enough time to business, giving enough time to users who are getting migrated through those communication, keeping them informed all the time on what's happening, what's coming. Okay, this is going to happen. This is what you should expect. This is now in production, so you can go ahead and explore it, start playing with it, right? Arranging trainings for them, right? Doing webcasts, right? Doing lunch and learning session, and this was greatly received by in a lot of organizations, where they would invite a group of people or a group of department for lunch, and they'll walk them through, this is the project, this is how we are doing it, and this is the new thing that's coming in, this is how it's going to benefit you for your department specifically. And that was well received by most of those business owners, right? Because they were properly informed about it. They knew about what are the benefits they're going to get out of it, right? Um, these organizations also built some self-service portals, right? Learning portals for end users, where they can go in, they can watch a video, they can see, okay, I click here, I click here, this is how it's happened. Okay, next time I get this prompt in Outlook, this is how it should look, this is the new look that's coming in, I can change themes here, right? I can archive my emails like this. All those kinds of, they were all available in the self-service portal, and they were communicated to users. And finally, what different we saw was, see, the CIO was driving it, right? When a CIO drives it, it comes from the top to bottom, right? So it is in CIOs are always influential person, right? So it becomes a great way of letting your business know that okay, the CIO is driving it, that the CIO has total ownership of it. He is making sure that we are adhering to all of your needs in terms of getting you the best collaboration or productivity platform to making your life more easier, right? So these were some of the things which we saw that worked for a lot of our customers or organizations, right? And eventually it all helped them to make sure that whatever project they were running in, it was successful, right? When I say it was successful, I don't want to say that there were no issues that were reported or there were no problems. There were issues, right? But again, it was less impactful to the end users, right? There were some issues related to Outlook, related to shared mailboxes. They were there, but again, there was a plan for it. There was a solution available for it. There were documents available for survey desks to go ahead and to troubleshoot them. Right? There are like run books, like knowledge base objects, kind of stuff. Right? So these are all worked out, right, for them. Um, Now, as we are talking through the success factors, right, it, we should also look at what actually failed, right? What didn't work for a lot of customers, right? Um, and how did they contribute in the overall failure of that project, right? So when we look at uh, assess, right, what we see in the project that were failed, right? A lot of customers hastily went for it, right, without assessing their environment, without looking at what are the pain areas, right, which they have to address before they actually go to Office 365, right, and before they plan to go to Exchange Online, right? And they did not assess their infrastructure stability. When I say infrastructure stability is um, it's about your infrastructure healthiness, right? Your network readiness, right? Your if you have enough bandwidth, right? If there is enough storage that is available on your on-prem environment, right? If the current Exchange infrastructure, which is on-prem, how healthy it is? Are all the cache runnings with a healthy state, right? Or all the integrations that are being done for spam management and for archiving and stuff, are they healthy enough to make sure that they can go through this transformation journey, right? And the next pillar that we will look at is the tools, right? So see, a lot of IT professionals say if you have less than around 8-10k mailboxes, investing in a migration tool is an overkill, right? Because native tools can do the job. So I agree with them partially, right? Yes, native tool can do the job. They are perfect. You have PowerShell scripts and stuff. It can do the job. It will do the job for you. But again, if the environment is complex, right, and critical, right, I would always say, or I will always recommend, you should go for a migration tool. The biggest reason being, if you have a tool that is available, it gives you more control over the migration. It gives you more management features, right? It gives you more room for controlling the way that you will be migrating, right? It gives you a more secured way to do those migrations, right? That's the reason I'm in favor of, if there is any kind of complexity in your environment, right, you should ideally go for a tool, right? Because it makes the migration less impactful for end users. If there are any third-party tools available in environment like spam management and filtering and archiving, uh, and and if you want to stick with those tools, because if you have done some investment into those tools in terms of licenses and stuff, and you want to stick with it, you do not want to use the inbuilt capabilities of Office 365 tools, it becomes necessary to use those third party tools, which will make your migration path a bit seamless, right? Right. So of all of these tools that I mentioned, spam management, filtering, right? If there are any third-party tools available, it's always good to do some proof of concepts, right? Before you decide on those tools, right? So just telling you one of the story, right? So one of the customer went for migration for native tools, right? The small batches which they planned earlier, right, in the earlier migration phases, they went smoothly without any issues. However, when they got to the next chunk, right, which was for some of the heavy mailboxes, the throughput was not that great, right? With the native tools available and everything, that was resulting in delays in migration processes and sometimes even rollbacks for the particular batches, right? One of the other customer, right, they went at, they were started that migration, they completed their pilot migration, and as they were planning for the production migration, then they realized that they don't have a solution available for the PST migration, right? Because the organization were allowing users to create their own PSTs, right? So there was no solution available for it, right? Which ended up in the project being on hold for more than 6 months or so. After 6 months, they figured out a solution where they had to bring in a third party tool. But again, if this would have been done in the assessment phase, right? If they would have thought about it in the building when they were building that pillar, right? It would have been an easier path for them as they move ahead, and the whole time that they went for 6 months, right? That would have been avoided, right? So the next pillar I would like to talk about is the team, right? The technical team, right? So it's any transformation, right? Do any kind of transformation, it's always a dedicated effort, right? Because as this technology is always evolving, right? It's the best interest of the to build a team. It's in the best interest of the project to build a team who have done this multiple times, right? And it's their bread and butter to do such kind of transformation, right? So in one of the migration projects which ran for almost 2 years, right, for hardly around 1,800 mailboxes, right, the issue was the customer was unwilling to build a separate team for this migration, right? What he was asking the operations team to do is to do mailbox migration of business hours, right, and support the day-to-day operation during business hours. Okay? And this is definitely some cost-cutting initiative. I understand that, but imagine the amount of frustration the operations team had to go through during this entire project, and not to forget the declined user experience throughout this project. Because see, for that much number of mailboxes, when we are taking 2 years of time, right, when one of your team member is migrated to Office 365 and enjoying all the benefits, and the next member is not, right, it, it becomes kind of unpleasant for the person who is not on the latest and greatest technology, right? So end users, right? Yeah. So we talked about teams, right? So now let's get to the next pillar, that is the decision, right? The decision team. So most of the failed or on hold migrations I have seen, right? The decision team has been the biggest culprit in them. Delayed decision by program sponsors, stakeholders playing the passing the ball game, organization culture politics, lean back attitudes, personal growth taking precedence over what's beneficial for organization. So these are some of the reasons, right, which came out of this decision team, which delayed the migration or which put the migration on hold, which impacted the migration in a very drastic way. So when next time when you hear that about a stalled or a delayed migration, you know which pillar to look for, right? So let me tell you one other story, right? This was shared to us by one of our IT geek, and we were having a conversation about his organization. So he was telling that they were going to migrate to hybrid Office 365 Action online migration solution, and they are in this journey from last 3.5 years, right? However, when I asked about the volumes or the volumetric of its organization, those were not that great, right? They were not that big to which they are saying they're doing it almost 3.5 years, and after 3.5 years they're approximately around 40% there, right? So my question to him was, oh, what's holding them? And he was very candid about it. He said it's management's will to do it, right? So I got curious. I asked, are they not looking, or are they not bothered about the dual expense, which they are paying for the same service, where they are paying expenses for their on-prem infrastructure, they are paying for their operations or support teams, and they are also paying for the license and service costs for Office 365. Ideally, it's a one service, but they're paying it on the two different ends for it, right? Whereas they can be at one end, and they can save a lot of money. The answer I got was pretty disheartening for any IT geek. Right? He said that as long as it's not putting a hole in their pocket, they're not bothered about it. And also, the program sponsor, a promotion is due mid next year, So maybe he will drive it to closure before that. You agree with me, guy? This is pretty disheartening for any IT geek. So, whenever a, this kind of project is stalled or hold, where to look for in your first step, right? Great. So now finally, moving on to communication, right? So Office 365 is a productivity suite. So it's all about user adoption. Unless we educate them, train them, inform them, it's never going to be a pleasant experience for them. So, in one of the organization, the volume of calls went up by 23%. Right, it was a big volume, but was manageable. So, however, the concern that they had was their CSAT score was dipping. Right, so they brought in a third party to perform an assessment for them to look at the service desk metrics and advise them on how to improve it. Right, and the results that came out, they were shocking. Right, so 90% of the dissatisfied users complained about the Outlook related issues. Right, they complained about Outlook performance related issues, kind of stuff. Right, so when they further investigated it, right, they found that these users who were complaining, who were dissatisfied with the service, right, they were migrated to Office 365, right, and they faced some of the issues like password pop-up issues, some authentication issues, the PSD and OST related problems, Outlook performance problems, crashing issues, shared mailboxes problems, right, and calendar issues, the biggest one. So users were completely unaware about what has happened in the background. Right? They were not communicated about the change that's going to happen or what they should expect in those kind of scenarios, which is definitely not a good sign of managing a user experience. Right? Great. So based on whatever we discussed, I would say moving to cloud is complex, but not because of the technology, but because of your environment, nuances, and specifics. Right. So because of dominance on of Office 365 in the market right now, a lot of organizations may feel that it's either Exchange Online way or the highway. But I would say go anyway, but make sure it's the right way. Do let us know your views on this video and if it was helpful to you. Do also let us know if you have any interesting stories similar to what we talked about. We'll continue to bring such videos to you. Till then, subscribe, like, comment, share, and follow us. And don't forget to click on the bell icon to get notification and updates. Thanks, IT Geeks. Have a nice day.